civil procedure, I want to give a brief review of venue and really just go over these rules and kind of simplify it in my head just so that it is easier to understand and easier to apply. We talked about venue. The rule for venue is 28 USC section 1391B. And underneath B, there are three ways that you can find proper venue. The first way is if all the defendants reside in the same state, then you can find a venue within any district that those defendants reside. Once again, you're going to be looking at the defendant's action, which is going to be very similar to personal jurisdiction. If there are multiple defendants and they are from different states, well, then you can look at 1391B2, which is where you examine where a substantial part of the events giving rise to the claim actually occurred. And you can almost think of this as being very similar to specific personal jurisdiction, where the claim actually arose out of. The thing to note is that 1391B1 will be applicable a lot of the time, but 1391B2 is going to be applicable most of the time. If either of those things are not available, you can use 1391B3, and that is just saying we can find proper venue if either of those things are not available. Other things to note with this brief review of that is that tag venue is actually a limitation on tag personal jurisdiction. So we've talked about specific personal jurisdiction, general personal jurisdiction, but tag personal jurisdiction is where you sue somebody within a state as they're just passing through it. The issue with that is a lot of the time venue is not going to allow tag jurisdiction to work. And the reason is because if the defendants are from Missouri and they're traveling to Iowa and the crash happened in Missouri and you want to sue them in Iowa, well, you sue them in Iowa via tag jurisdiction. You can't find general or personal specific because they're from Missouri and that's where everything happened. But if you try and sue them in Iowa, venue is going to be an issue because you can't meet 1391B1 or 1391B2. And that's because both of those venue locations are going to be somewhere in Missouri. We have one case to talk about with venue. We have Uffner. What happened here is that a person had gotten an insurance plan. It was worked out through a French company. He had purchased this insurance for his boat that he was sailing in Puerto Rico. It turns out that the boat caught fire and sunk off the coast of Puerto Rico, and so he sued the company because they wouldn't pay him money for the insurance claim that he had filed. And so this case is going to be all about 1391B2, which is a substantial part. And so we're really trying to define what a substantial part is here. And we're going to say that the boat catching fire was the substantial part of where the claim arose. And the reason for that is because the defendant's claims here, the defendant here claims that this was a breach of contract and had nothing to do with Puerto Rico, and instead that everything was negotiated in France. So the defendants want this to be in France. But the court says that this is a substantial part in Puerto Rico because the contract was about his boat, and the boat sank. And where did the boat sink? Well, it sunk in Puerto Rico. And therefore, everything related to that contract was dependent on what happened to the boat. And because what happened to the boat was that it sank, that's a substantial part of the claim that the defendant is actually arising for. And so that's a little bit of a review of venue, a little of extra information as well. So we just really summed up the statute of venue and then talked about tag and then applied 1391B2. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Law Schoolers. Before I let you go, there are 4 things I want to say. The first thing is if you enjoyed these episodes and if you enjoyed the website, I would invite you to go and join Law Schoolers Pro. And you can do that by going to lawschoolers.com/join. It's a way for you to support us, but there's also a lot of features there that I think you will enjoy. Second thing is that nearly all of our episodes are unedited. The only ones that aren't are pre-law materials, and the reason for that is so you can actually see the legal material in its raw form as I'm learning it as well. The third thing is that the information contained in these episodes are specifically only for educational purposes. They're not to be used as legal advice, and with that, the fourth thing is if it is used as legal advice, we are not liable. That is, Law Schoolers is not liable for any legal outcomes. Thank you again for enjoying the show. Have a good one.